I'm Russell Nash. I'm the Deputy Executive Director here at COAERS. You are in the new COAERS headquarters building. You can applaud for that because you own this building. It helps further the expenses and helps all of us make sure that the benefits that we promised to everyone can be realized. We opened our doors last April, and we're happy to have you again here this summer. We have a conference-style program today. It's come and go, so if you need to use the restrooms, you can. If you need to go get some more coffee, you're more than welcome to. Please come and go as you please. You should be able to glean some practical tips today. We want to be real with you. We want to be practical with you. Things that you can do at any age or any stage. You'll hear that from time to time today. Before we jump into our program, I want to recognize two things. First, we want to recognize that the past few weeks have been difficult for our community and our fellow citizens in the Hill Country. It's impossible to express our sadness and grief for what has happened. Those who are affected are in our thoughts and prayers, and we do appreciate all of those who are responding to that incident as well. Also, we just learned the passing of former council member Bill Spellman. Bill Spellman was one of our trustees who has passed away as well. And our thoughts are with his family at this time as well. So please keep those two events in your thoughts and prayers at this time. We have a very special first presenter today. The topic is, believe it or not, people retire and then they come back to work. And so Lovey Robinson-Laurent is here. She's 17 years with COAERS. She's a member services specialist, and she will tell us about all the ins and outs of retiring and returning to work. Lovey, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our annual summit meeting. My name is Lovey Robinson-Laurent, and I am a member service specialist here at COAERS. So too many clicks. Okay, and Russ went over some of the housekeeping reminders, but again, if you have not had an opportunity to sign in at our welcome table, please remember to do so. Following each presentation, if time allows, we will take a few questions from the audience, but if we're not able to answer your questions, we will be out in the lobby, and so if you just come and visit us at the resource table, we'll be able to help you. And lastly, we have coffee and refreshments out in the lobby for you, so don't be shy. We want you to enjoy them. And so before starting the presentation, again, we want to say welcome to our board members for taking the time out of their busy schedule to come in and be with us. And so we'll go ahead and move along to the presentation. So navigating post-retirement employment. That's something that many of our employees, retirees will experience. If they're considering returning back to work, is a dilemma that many of our retirees will experience if they're interested in coming back to work as a retiree return to work with the City of Austin. So some of the reasons why they would consider coming back to work is for financial flexibility, if they wanted to supplement their income, and sometimes they view this return as a way to stay active and be mentally engaged. Returning to work may allow them to share their expertise, and sometimes a lot of our retirees say they're returning back because they have projects that they just haven't finished and they just can't retire without completing them, so they want to go back to work as a retiree return to work. And lastly, it could simply be a desire to explore new interests or a career path. Regardless of the reason, it's important to be familiar with the rules regarding retiring and returning back to work if you want to go back to work for the City of Austin. So the first thing that you want to be aware of is the 1508-hour rule. So as a retiree returning to work, if you were to return back to work with the City of Austin, you're basically going back in a part-time capacity. So you would work 29 hours a week. And if you only work 29 hours a week, you would stay and be able to work an entire rolling calendar year. You would be able to work 1508 hours. And so that is a rolling calendar year, not from January to December. So if you went back to work as a retiree in June, then it would be from June to June. So just make sure that it's a 12-month rolling calendar year. And so it's important that you're monitoring the hours that you work. So if you only work 29 hours, again, you would be able to work for an entire year because you wouldn't go over the 1508 that we allow you to work. It does not mean that you couldn't work more than 29 hours. It just means that if you did work more, that you're going to hit that 1508 limit sooner, and then that's when you're going to have to stop working. Now, we do monitor the hours that you work, And it is your responsibility as a retiree to make sure that you account for those hours that you work. It's not your timekeeper or your supervisor. If by some chance you are in violation of the number of hours that you work, and we do look at that every pay period. We don't automatically stop your retirement. What we will do is reach out to your department to make sure that it's not a data entry error. If they report that you actually work those hours, then we're going to reach out to you to let you know that you've violated. And so you have the option, if you would like to continue with your retirement annuity, you would need to end your employment. Or if you decided that you wanted to go back to work full-time for the city because it was more beneficial for you to do that, then you would suspend your retirement annuity. So you do have the option as to what you would like to do, but we don't want you to violate. So please make sure that you monitor the hours that you work. So what counts towards the 1508 hour rule? So it includes any hours that you are compensated for, not just hours that you have worked. So if you're a retiree returned to work, we're going to count the hours that you work. If you're paid for any vacation time, any sick time, or any holiday pay, those hours count towards that 1508. So just because you haven't actually worked it doesn't mean that we're not going to count that. So again, make sure that you keep track of the hours that you're accumulating. So when it comes back to the retirement rule, we have some retirees who have the have the ability or who are offered full-time employment back with the city of Austin. And so in order to become a full-time employee, you cannot work full-time for the for the city of Austin and also receive a retirement benefit. So if you're going to return back to employment with the city of Austin as a full-time employee, you will have to suspend your retirement annuity. And so what you would do is advise us that you are returning and we will stop your retirement payment. We don't hold those retirement annuities and pay you when you decide to re-retire. Those payments just stop. When you decide that you are ending your full-time employment and you re-retire, it's important to know that your retirement selection, your original retirement selection, is what you will continue with. You will not be able to change that. We will recalculate your monthly benefit to see if anything changes based on the service credit that you have accrued, and to calculate your final average salary to see if there's going to be a change in your retirement annuity. So it's important to know that when you retire, your monthly benefit will never go down, but it may never go up. If by some chance you suspend your retirement annuity to return back to work to full-time employment, your retirement annuity would never go down, but there's a possibility that there may be no change even though you've returned back to work for the city of Austin. But we will do the recalculation to see if there are any changes, and if it increases your benefit, then that's a plus for you. So if you are a retiree and you are under the age of 55, there is a 90-day waiting period before you can return back to work with the city of Austin. If you are over 55, there is no waiting period. It's important to know that there can be no prearranged agreements from returning to employment with the city of Austin. We expect that you're going to go through the normal process of applying for the position, I'm assuming being interviewed and being offered the job. If you violate any of those terms, it may result in your benefit being suspended or a delay in your reinstatement of your monthly check. So again, follow the rules if you would like to go back to work for the city of Austin. So working elsewhere. So the only time the hours that you work when you are a retiree are monitored is if you return back to work to the city of Austin. If you work for any other entity, we don't monitor the hours and you can work as much as you like. It doesn't affect your monthly benefit with us. We're not concerned with how many hours you work. It's only if you work for the city of Austin that we do monitor the hours to make sure that you're in compliance with the rules. And health coverage. So if you return back to work for the city of Austin as a full-time employee, more than likely you're going to be offered the benefits as an active employee. So before you consider any employment, we do encourage you to reach out to the city's HR department to discuss how that would impact you if you re-employed with the city of Austin as a full-time employee. And lastly, planning wisely. So again, if you're thinking about returning back to work as a retiree return to work, make sure you know your limits. You can only work 1508 hours in a rolling calendar year. There is a 90-day waiting period if you're under the age of 55. No waiting period if you're over 55. Make sure that you keep track of your hours worked. and understand the consequences of taking full-time employment back with the city, if that's something that you're considering. And again, if you have any questions as to how that would impact you, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help.
Thank you, Ivan.
All right, make sure you're comfortable. If you need more coffee, feel free to go out and get some. I'm up next. This is called Financial Planning Across Career Stages. And the good news is that there's a ton of information about financial planning out there. And the bad news is there's a ton of information about financial planning out there. So we're going to try to make this right-sized city employees so this is relevant to you. There's a huge quandary about who to listen to as well. There's so many voices out there. Is it Dave Ramsey? Is it Susie Orman? Is it the Motley Fool? I even thought of E.F. Hutton. Does anybody remember E.F. Hutton? All right, our audience participation. When E.F. Hutton talks, all right, excellent. Give yourselves a round of applause. That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Now, if you do not know what we're talking about, congratulations, you are young, and you can Google this or see it on TikTok after the session today. But who to talk to, who to listen to? Well, I thought about all of those sources, and I dismissed them all. My source of financial planning information comes from that great country singer, George Jones. Does anybody know who George Jones is? By a round of applause. George Jones, all right. Well, who better to get financial advice from than a guy whose nickname is the Possum? So well done if you're a George Jones fan. But I believe that he said it all in 1967 when he recorded that famous country song, "I Can't Get There From Here." I can't get there from here. The words go something like this: I'm looking for the town where sadness can't be found, where happiness is blooming all year round. A place where there's no heartaches and no one cries a tear, but they all say, I can't get there from here. What is George talking about? Well, it's a typical human condition where we're all afraid of being in a situation where we have no options, right? Where we feel stuck, where everything is overwhelming, when we think that there's no way to succeed. Well, here at COAERS, we believe there is a way to succeed and find, at some point in your life, financial independence. And I don't have any slides going. There we go. So financial planning is not one thing. It's a series of success factors. And for the sake of this presentation, we have outlined a few of them. First of all, it's accumulating wealth. And you may be saying, Russ, I'm never going to be wealthy. I'm never going to be a billionaire. And I would say, yes, that is true. I hope that's the case for you. But what we want you to do is do things that are realistically possible to accumulate wealth and take advantage of opportunities that we'll get into a little bit later. We want you to manage expenses and debt. We all have to do this as part of our success for financial independence. We need to manage risk. We need to manage our health. And along the way, we need to live our best life and leave a legacy. And let me tell you a little bit how these might show up in a typical lifestyle. Now, you're different than I am, but let's see how these might show up in someone's life, for example. So early in your career, you might be managing expenses and debt. You're just out of college. You're not earning as much as you'd like to, but you've got a lot of time, so you're living your best life, right? And so accumulating wealth and managing your health and managing risk and living a legacy really don't show up for you very much. As you move on into mid-career, things change. Managing risk pops way up. You might have a house and not need to have homeowners insurance. You might have vehicles now with auto insurance. You have children and they're precious. You understand that it's risky to make sure that they are well cared for. And then maybe you're making a little bit more and you can accumulate some wealth. And then as you get into your pre-retirement and post-retirement years, things change again. Maybe you're managing a health condition. You've got time again. You're trying to live your best life. And guess what? Leaving a legacy all of a sudden shows up in your life. You're wondering, how can I make a difference in this world? And this is important because there is something that I think is true, that we tend to focus on a particular aspect of life when it's most problematic. And we may forget to do all of the other things, have a presence in each one of the other aspects of life, all through the stages of life. Any age, any stage, remember that. So for example, going back to this slide, a lot of us may know a 20-year-old who's living their best life, but maybe has not saved so much at retirement. Well, that's a missed opportunity, isn't it? If you wait until age 60 to start getting in shape and dealing with your health, you may not be able to overcome those prior poor habits, right? So this is fairly simple. So the idea here, the secret to all of this, is that it's not a magic bullet. It's about having a presence in each one of these success factors, cycling through them, and this is really important. Don't ignore any of them in any stage of life. And you can do this. It's not overwhelming. And here's how a city employee, you can go about putting the pieces together. Let's talk about accumulating wealth. These are two columns that represent a typical retirement portfolio, perhaps for a private sector employer, and then us as city employees. So the white stack shows a 401k as the basis for retirement income, IRA to supplement that, and then Social Security. Look at what it says in red. Think about this from a risk perspective. Who is bearing two types of risk here? There's one type called investment risk, which is making good investment decisions and turning your savings into more and more money as time goes by with the benefit of compounding interest. And then there's longevity risk, and that's the risk of outliving your money. Can you imagine that? Outliving your money? Well, those two types of retirement plan, guess where the risk lies? It lies with you, the participant. So you bear the responsibility of those risks, all right? And let's then go to the next bar. If you're a COAERS employee, you have COAERS as the fundamental component of your retirement income, supplemented by Social Security, and then the 457 plan. So COAERS, in a COAERS plan, the investment risk and the longevity risk is on the plan, not you. You're going to get the benefit of having an annuity for your lifetime. Social Security is the same way. And your 457 DC plan is somewhat risky in that you bear those responsibilities, but it doesn't expose you to all the risk of a typical worker. And so think about that. So let's dive into COAERS. I'm assuming you're interested in it. That's why we're all here today. Again, you bear no investment risk, no longevity risk. You're getting a guaranteed income from life. The city funds these promised benefits very generously, and the COAERS trustees and staff manage these funds so that everyone has the promise of a benefit when they're eligible to retire. Your contributions have nothing to do with the benefit that you're going to get. Think about that. Your benefit's based upon a formula that we'll look at here in a bit. And that formula is designed to give you what's called a replacement ratio. That's basically replacing your pre-retirement income. That's that green bar that we're talking about. That's a huge benefit. The other benefit that you have is your benefits are constitutionally protected here in Texas, and that's been litigated in the courts as well. You can also do things like convert your unused sick leave to increase your replacement ratio. Your contributions are always tax deferred, and it lowers your taxable income. One downside of the COAERS plan is that it doesn't provide for a cost of living adjustment, but there are give and take, pros and cons and trade-offs in any retirement plan. Here's how the COAERS defined benefit plan works. We're taking an average of your final average salary. It's the high 3 years out of the last 10 that you work. We're multiplying that by your service credit. So every month and every year you work, you're increasing that replacement ratio. It's a multiplier. For Group B people, it's 2.5%, and that's yielding a lifetime monthly benefit. So it has nothing to do with your contributions at all, right? This benefit is defining your post-retirement income as a function of your replacement ratio. And your contributions are like dues in an organization. That's helping fund the plan for everybody over time. So that's how the benefit's designed. And here's a Group B member. Let's say their final average salary is $7,000 and they work a 30-year career. They're going to get $5,250 a month for their life. That's a 75% replacement ratio. You see what I'm talking about? That's that green bar that we talked about a few slides ago. Your contributions are tax-free. They're automatically deducted. They're like dues in an organization that go to fund the benefits. However, if you choose not to have a city career, you can take those contributions with you, plus interest that we provide you annually. It's your money, you're paying yourself, and you can roll those over to another qualified plan. You can also do other interesting things in the COAERS plan, like declaring proportionate time will give you retirement eligibility credit for time that you earn in another retirement system, like the police retirement system. If you work for the county or the state, please declare your proportionate time. You can do that on Member Direct. You can also buy service credit at retirement, supplementary service, which is kind of like airtime, your prior military service, non-contributory service, and sick leave. And we'll talk about sick leave here in a minute because this is a pro tip. How does this work? What are you talking about, Russ, sick leave? Well, you're converting it to retirement service credit. And if you can convert it to retirement service credit, you're increasing your benefit, thus increasing your replacement ratio. So at retirement, what we're doing is looking at the unused portion of your sick leave, and we'll be converting that to sick leave, to service credit in your retirement benefit. You can do this 30 to 60 days before you retire. You do have to pay a small amount for it, but you can save for that in your deferred compensation plan. So this is pro tip number 1. Pro tip number 2 is know your numbers. You probably heard this in the healthcare arena. It's also true in the financial arena. You should log in, register for Member Direct, and run a retirement benefit estimate. This is one of a sample retirement benefit estimate. It has your information on it, your details, demographic information. And it tells you what your final average salary is, how much service credit you'll have, what your FAS percentage is, or your replacement ratio, and your lifetime annuity benefit. No longevity risk, no investment risk. You get that for your entire lifetime. So run a benefit estimate, run it regularly. In Member Direct, you can run it every day if you want to, every hour if you wanted to do that. But know your numbers and keep this information as the basis of your financial planning. Now, you should also plan on Social Security. Now, I know there's a lot of debate about Social Security. You're probably already thinking negative thoughts about Social Security in your mind. I am too, I get it. But you should still plan for it. It's going to allow you to draw a benefit when you've got 10 years of what they call 40 quarters of work history. They're going to determine your benefit. It's also a defined benefit on 35 years of earnings. But the pro tip here is to run a Social Security estimate as well. www.ssa.gov. You create an account, you run a benefit estimate just like you did at Member Direct, and now guess what? You've got both pieces of your defined benefit plans for you for your retirement, and knowing your numbers is really important. Deferred compensation is also part of your retirement planning. This is also a must-do. It's overseen by the City of Austin. The governance is with City of Austin employees. It is a perfect way for you to supplement your retirement income, pay for a service purchase later on when you retire, pay for converting your unused sick leave, take advantage of it. You can participate with as low as $10 a paycheck or up to $23,500 a year. If you're over 50, those limits increase considerably. It's called a catch-up provision. They have seminars just like this all the time. Oliver and Natalie are out in the back. You should log in and have a deferred comp account if you participate. And there's also a perfect resource for us that's free of charge. Her name is Jennifer Preston. She's a certified financial planner, and she can put all this together for you and ensure that you've got a comprehensive plan on your way to financial independence. On the accumulating wealth side, you also should think about your service incentive pay. What are you going to do with that extra money that you get every year? What are you going to do with it? Is it going to go towards a want or a need? Or is it going to go to your financial future? So think about that. We also encourage everyone to have an emergency fund. The amount can be up to you, but what you're trying to do is put together enough cash so that if your car breaks down, if you need a new washer and dryer or something, you can pay cash for that rather than to go into debt or put it on a credit card. Let's talk about managing expenses and debt. Now, the real resource is going to follow me. Sarah McCleary's following me. She's going to have more insight on this, so I'm going to hit the highlights. First of all, have a budget. Have a budget. This is really important. List your essential expenses, understand what your net is in terms of your take home, and adhere to it. Review it all the time. Things change. So making this budget discipline part of your life is important, whether you're 20, 40, 60, 80, you're gonna need a budget. Then, in terms of credit, use it wisely. Pay your bills on time, make your credit card payments on time. Keep your balances low, no more than 70% of your total credit limit. Pay them more than the minimum payment, and regularly review your credit reports to make sure that you're not a victim of fraud. Childcare expenses have to be managed. Those of you who have children and need daycare, you know. Those of you who are paying for college, I'm praying for you. The city offers two really important plans. First, the dependent care spending account. It's pre-tax dollars to go towards funding dependent care. And I believe under the new legislation in Congress, the amounts that you can defer pre-tax are going to go up. There's also the Child Care Assistance Program. If you qualify, these are fantastic options to manage child care expenses. And there are lots of other ways to save, and these are city programs that you can take advantage of, opportunities for you, tuition reimbursement, home buyer assistance, and there's lots of transportation benefits as well. So that's on the expense side. Let's talk about risk. Remember, you're middle-aged now, and you've got insurance, and risk comes into your life. Well, the city's got you covered here too. Life insurance, you get basic life for free. It's basically 1 times your salary. Then you can pay up for supplemental insurance as well. It's paid by you, but it's really inexpensive. You also can cover your dependents as well with dependent life insurance. That's paid as well. There's 2 options as well. We'll have open enrollment coming along in October where you can get more information about this. And then in addition to these life insurance benefits, you also have benefits from COAERS. If something happens to you as an active member, your beneficiaries are going to get paid out by your life insurance with the city, but we're also going to pay your beneficiaries double the amount of your contributions and interest. That's also like life insurance for your beneficiaries as well. And as a retiree, there's a $10,000 death benefit plus $1,000 of city insurance benefits as well. Another risk that we don't really think about, and that is disability. There's nothing more devastating than being disabled, unable to work before your retirement. But the city's got you covered here as well. There's long-term disability insurance with the city, and then COAERS also has disability retirement. If you find yourself in this situation, talk to HR, talk to us, apply for them both, and get the benefits of this financial protection. So with all of that in terms of risk, the worst risk you have is to have all these benefits, participating in them, and not have beneficiaries named or updated. So if you don't have a beneficiary named for COAERS, for your life insurance, for your Empower plan, for your HSA account, you need to do that today. Name someone. It is a tragedy for something to happen to you and you have no beneficiary named, and then your heirs have to go through probate or some other legal proceeding to get the money, which they could have entirely avoided if you had just named a beneficiary. The people outside can help you do this. There's also a risk that we often overlook, which is at some point in our lives, we may need help. And this is any age, any stage. So it is important for you to prepare for a time when you might need help. We talked about this last year. I started a list of important documents that you need to gather, all of us need to gather, I'm talking about myself as well, and share with a loved one, a trusted source, because there may be a time when that trusted source needs to take care of your business. I started this list and I got exhausted and I just stopped. But you can see how many things that you need to communicate to a loved one. Your contact people for COAERS, for example, the Empower representatives, your legal counsel, financial advisor, your insurance agent, copies of your beneficiary form, life insurance policies, your social security card, your health insurance cards, birth certificates, military, and on to the next column. Mortgages, bank accounts, and the usernames and passwords to get into those accounts, power of attorney document, healthcare power of attorney. And the second to last one, you think utility bills, Russ, really? We know of a situation where someone was incapacitated and in their home on oxygen, and no one could pay the utility bill. So think about the house not having air conditioning or electricity to keep the oxygen going, right? So it's important that someone, a trusted source in your life, is helping you prepare for a time when you may need help. You also might need to consider a durable power of attorney or a medical power of attorney. An attorney in the state of Texas can fashion these for you, or a living will or advance directive for a scenario that you might be faced with at the end of life. We have something new to offer along these lines to help you defer your legal expenses. In August, behind Member Direct, if you log into Member Direct, you'll see the ability to designate an agent and create a COAERS power of attorney for you. So you can defer your legal expenses. So with respect to COAERS business only, not a general power of attorney, but with respect to COAERS business, you can fill out this form, sign it, have it notarized. We provide free notarization services. And have this on file so that if something happens to you where you cannot take care of your business, you already have an agent designated to take care of your COAERS business. So this is coming online in August for COAERS members. There's also a huge need for long-term care these days. So maybe someone can't take care of you at home and maybe you need a facility. So long-term care is becoming more and more prevalent in our society, and there's a lot of confusion about it. What does it cost? Where do I go? How do I get resources? Well, we have a seminar coming up on September 3rd at noon to do just that. Demystify some of the mysterious parts of long-term care and get you the facts and information about how to handle long-term care if you need it. The other thing that we see that's a risk is some people just decide to drive here on Monday morning rather than their office. They're just done. They're exhausted. They're frustrated. They have had it. I'm sure no one in here feels like that.
Yeah.
That is not the right way to retire. That's Russell Nash's opinion. That's not a good way to retire. And so a risk is you retire just because you're eligible, but you don't necessarily have a purpose for the next stage of your life. So what do you want your retirement to be about? Is it a second career? Do you have specific things in mind to do to make yourself fulfilled and give a legacy to your community? So consider that as a risk as well in your retirement planning. Managing your health, stay healthy. That's easier said than done, right? But don't be the 60-year-old who just now wants to start to get healthy. This is an any age, any stage issue. The city has a lot of resources, beginning with comprehensive medical, dental, and vision insurance. It's a fantastic set of programs. There's also programs for managing chronic disease, diabetes, tobacco cessation, eating well. Take advantage of all of those city offerings. Leaving a legacy. This is a key aspect of life. So there's two components of this that I want to talk to you about. One is financial. On the financial side, remember how I told you about the formula, and when you come in to retire with COAERS, we'll use a formula to calculate your benefits. Well, that formula generates a single life annuity for you only. But you can elect to reduce that benefit slightly and then provide a lifetime benefit to someone else after you retire. What a fantastic financial legacy that you can give someone. There are survivor options. The people outside can go through them with you in detail. There are several flavors of them. You can also run a benefit estimate with the survivor, see what your reduction is going to be during your lifetime and what their benefit is going to be. Really paying for 2 lives, guaranteed benefits, no longevity risk, no investment risk. You can also leave a legacy just by contributing to your family, memories, your friends, and then Austin is replete with volunteer opportunities. Here's a list of many of them. There are many more. I'm thinking about volunteering at the airport. I love the airport, believe it or not. So, remember this. It is not a silver bullet. There isn't one thing. There are success factors at work here for you to become financially independent and have and live your best life. Cycle through them, any age, any stage. The most important thing is don't ignore any of them at any time. And you can do this. Now, in the slides that you're going to get, you'll have lots of other resources. We have some email. We have some tips on how to work through these stages and be successful in your career, as well as gain financial independence. Sarah McCleary, she has been with us for 9 years, and she's our new financial literacy specialist and ombuds. Let's help me welcome Sarah McCleary.
How to recession-proof your budget. Okay, so some of the things we're going to do today, we're just going to do some budgeting basics. If there's anyone who doesn't have a budget or who maybe needs to redo theirs. Some smart ways to cut your costs, a couple of ways where you could increase your income, and then also think about protecting what you have. And then this little bottom part is important. I want you to just take what you take what you want, and anything that doesn't apply to you, just leave it behind. Say that twice, okay? Okay. If something doesn't apply to you because everybody's circumstances are different, just leave it behind. It's okay. Everything's not for everybody. Okay, so the first part, I think Russell talked about knowing your numbers. We do that in the medical world, we do it in the retirement world, and we need to know our numbers in the budgeting world. Okay, so you just want to know, like, what's my starting point? Where am I? So you log on to your bank and you just look at your darn numbers and you track your income. And you're going to identify your expenses pretty much in 3 categories. The fixed expenses are the easy ones. They're the ones you pay the same amount every month. You know, it might be your rent, it might be your mortgage, whatever it is, but it's coming out every month, you know it. And then the periodic ones, you know they're going to happen, but they don't happen on a monthly routine. You know, for me, it's like my Costco membership or my car insurance. It might be a quarterly thing, it might be a yearly thing. I know it's happening, but it's not every month. And then the third ones are the variable expenses. When I pull up to get gas, I pay the rate that it says at the pump. I don't get to negotiate. I don't know exactly how much my car is going to take. I just fill it up. Same with grocery shopping. You don't know exactly what it's going to cost. You sort of do, but it's going to change every time. And so you're just going to start with creating a current budget. And thanks to Maren, we put something on the website, a handy dandy COAERS budget calculator. And I'm going to show you how to use it. It's pretty basic. Okay. And this is what it looks like. It's a real simple tool where you're just going to put in your expenses, you're going to put in how much you earn, and it's going to do the arithmetic for you. It's pretty simple, but the thing I love about it is it's absolutely anonymous, okay? I don't know if you've ever done one on the web where you put everything in, you hit enter, and it's like, okay, great. Now give me your email address and I'll send you the results. And you're like, no, I don't really want a salesperson calling me. This is just sort of anonymous. It's just for you. Nothing's saved. We can't see it. Okay. So the step 1 is really you're just going to enter your expenses, fixed, periodic, or variable. And you can use our categories, or you can just overwrite them and put your own in. And you're going to put in like car loan, how much you pay, is it monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever it is, your electricity, your gas, however your budget is set up, you're going to put your numbers in, the category of the expense and how often it happens, and let the arithmetic just happen over to the side. But I will say, please use your real numbers, not like what you think it should be. Use what you really have spent. Because again, nobody sees this but you. And then you're going to enter your income. I think for most of the active employees, it's that you're paid every 2 weeks, just whatever your take-home pay is. We don't care about all the deductions. What are you bringing in? And if you're a retiree, then it's probably a monthly annuity. But whatever it is, just put your income in and let us do the math for you. Okay. And then we're going to review the budget. And this one came up as unsustainable because this sample person is taking in less than they're spending every year. So the question is why? Okay, and I don't really have an answer why, but I can tell you why not. It's not because it's a bad person. It's not because got up late on Tuesday and went to Starbucks. It's just arithmetic, okay? And the thing about arithmetic is it's really non-judgmental. It doesn't care why your credit card balance is what it is. It just is. It's just going to add up the numbers. So you just review your numbers, and if you come up and it's not really getting you where you want to go to your goals, then you're going to just need to look at it. You're going to either need to decrease your spending, increase your earnings, or a little of both. Again, it's just non-judgmental. It's just arithmetic. Okay, so decreasing spending, cutting costs without cutting joy. Is there a way you can manage your expenses more effectively? Sometimes the answer is yes. So here's a few things. We've cut this way down, but some of the basic services you can shop around for. And I'll give you an example because I have 2 cats and a veterinarian who I love. But you know what? I can get the really once-a-year shots that they need so much cheaper at a clinic, and then just do the touchy-feely stuff for the important stuff. If you have to have prescription pet food, for example, you can usually ask your vet. There's always a lower cost option that they don't tell you about at first. rethink vehicle ownership. It might be time to go to a one-car family. You know, Uber's available. Do you really always need two cars? Again, for some of you, it's absolutely. And for some of you, it's like, maybe we could downsize, maybe we could share. And think about just your, subscription services. Is there anything that you're buying that you used to need that you don't need anymore? Or that you could cut back on? And refinancing is a big one, where you just want to think about refinancing your mortgage, your auto, or your credit card debt. Okay? And we always want to negotiate, and we always want to ask, because what's the worst thing that can happen? Someone says no. That's okay. So just call the service advisors. Hey, can you give me a different credit card and lower credit card interest? Can you waive these bank fees? I didn't see this coming. I get my insurance for both this and this through you. Is there some sort of discount I can take? And it really is just okay to ask. The trick is, though, you have to talk to somebody. You got to pick up your phone or go in person, and you just have to ask. And a lot of times they'll say yes. Sometimes they'll say no. Do it yourself and free resources. I know I use YouTube for simple home repairs. I'm never going to touch electricity. I'm never doing the plumbing. But if it's something simple, I'll watch the YouTube video about 4 times to give it a try. There's groups like Free Cycle and the Buy Nothing Project, and they're really designed for sharing. So if you have something and it's still good, but you don't need it, you kind of put it on the group and there's somebody else who wants it. And both as a giver and a taker, these groups are really good for just keeping your budget down. Anyone here who lives in Austin already knows this one, but our library is amazing. Books, movies, etc. from the library. And meal kits, this is another one of them, but it depends on who you are. Do you eat at a restaurant every single night? Well, the meal kit's gonna probably save you some money. Do you already use a meal kit 4 times a week? Well, maybe if you would just cook from scratch twice a week, that would save you money. So you can use more, you can use less based on your needs, and it could save you a little bit. Okay? And then this one I think is the most important one, is to build a financial support network. Because I'm guessing that we all know a lot about our friends, and our friends know a lot about us. Really personal information. But we really don't talk about money. But it's okay. You can normalize just talking about money and what your challenges are, or what your wins were, where the great sale was. And sometimes that leads to sharing resources. And I put, rides, childcare, meals, even tools. Like if you both have a tiny little house, do you both need your own lawnmower? Did we both need a subscription to Vogue magazine? Okay, but maybe you do. And just kind of embracing the sharing economy. But this is, to me, this is one of the biggest one, is a financial support network. Okay, let's just talk about some ways that you can possibly boost your income. Okay, I guarantee you, if you have a skill or a talent, there is somebody who will pay you to do it. Now, the internet is an awesome way to match your skill or talent with somebody who wants to pay you. But my caveat here, if there's anyone who's an active city employee, we want to make sure to follow the city employment policies. I'll paraphrase them. No conflict of interest, and please don't use the city resources, but you need to follow the city employment policies if you're going to moonlight. And this is another one of them, like Russell's, that it just could go on and on and on, but just a couple of gigs, things that you could do. And with a gig economy, you do it when you want to do it, you don't do it when you don't want to do it. And the obvious one is like, oh, I could drive for Uber or Lyft or deliver packages. But they also pay people with pickup trucks to go pick up those darn scooters and charge them and put them back in the designated spots. You can rent out your own car, kind of like Airbnb. There's one of those for cars. I had a friend, Kevin, who used to teach English to Chinese kids at 4 a.m. He would log on to Zoom. He would do his English class. He didn't speak a bit of Chinese, and he was not a morning person, but he loved it. It really supplemented his income. There's somebody in Austin who literally makes his living teaching the ukulele via Zoom. Okay, so if you've got a talent, there's somebody who can pay you to do it, okay? There's also things like, there's a pretty good stipend if you're able to host a foreign exchange student or have a roommate or rent out a room. pet care, caregiving, any artists, there's Etsy or all the online sales. And if there's no HR people in here, I can say this, you can also just kind of like ask for a raise. Sorry, Russell. You can ask, right? The worst they can say is no. The storage units is a huge one. There's storage units all over the city. Okay, if you have a storage unit and all you're keeping in it is your dining room table and your Christmas stuff, and you haven't hosted Christmas in 4 years, maybe we should think about the storage unit. Same for lawns. If your lawn is taking all your time and all your money, consider it, okay? Buying in bulk when it makes sense. And I know for the environment, we always say reduce, reuse, and recycle, but you know what, that really works for our budget too. Okay, and here's just a few of the apps, and COAERS doesn't really endorse any of them, but there's tons of them. If you've got a talent, you can find an app to match you up with. The wrong way, okay. So after we've thought about maybe reducing our expenses, maybe increasing our income, we need to go back to our handy dandy budget calculator and just rerun the budget, just see what it looks like. Is it bringing you toward your goals now? And if it is, then let's consider the timing of the bills and the deposits so that there's no surprises. You don't want one of those, oh my God, is it already time to register my car again? I don't have the money for that. So think about the timing, your second time through after you've been through this. Going the wrong way. Okay, whoops. All right, I won't dwell too long here, but for the next few years, if you're 65 or older, your standard deduction is going to increase by $6,000. It does phase out with higher incomes, but it could mean that more of your income is either tax-free or in a lower tax bracket. And they did this kind of in lieu of making Social Security non-taxable. Okay. A couple more tax things to think of. If you have a high deductible health savings account plan, and you've already spent everything in it, and you still have more doctor's bills, okay, like, I mean, every year is different, but you could literally put money into the HSA and then pay it from the HSA and come out ahead. You might consider converting to a Roth IRA if you want to avoid the required minimum distributions. Taxes, there are some taxes at conversion, but the Roths grow tax-free and have no RMDs. Again, that applies to some of you, it doesn't apply to some. But if you are taking a required minimum distribution, with most places, you don't have to take it all at once. So if you're in a really volatile year and your account is just going up and down and up and down, just don't take the whole thing at once. Just spread it out, and then you're spreading your risk. And if you're making a big donation to a charity, don't sell your stock and then pay capital gains on it and then give them the money. Just give them the stock. Strategies to crush debt. And this picture kind of speaks to me. I'm sure anyone who's ever had kids in college, it might speak to you too, okay? Some of the ways to get around debt, we want to think about refinancing it or consolidating, okay? Again, negotiate, ask. The worst they can do is say no. And we want to just really press the pause button on adding any new debt if we can. Not putting things on credit card if you can possibly avoid it. And automating the payments is going to mean that you're never going to have a late fee, okay? There's sort of two strategies for crushing the debt. They both work. I believe in one much more than the other, but again, it's up to you. The snowball method is you take all the debts that you owe and you just put them in order by balance due. And you pay as much as you possibly can toward the one with the smallest balance. And just pay that one off first. And then you kind of get momentum and you're like, okay, I've only got 5 things to pay instead of 6. And you just keep paying the minimum on the bigger ones and as much as you possibly can toward that smallest balance. And you just sort of gather some momentum. Mathematically, the avalanche method works better because you're putting them in order not by balance due, but by interest rate. And if you're disciplined enough, paying the higher interest rate first, mathematically, you're going to pay a lot less money. Does that work for me? No. I had needed to do the snowball. I needed to get my momentum. So this is just sort of how you put them in order based on which way you want to get out of debt. We've probably seen this quote 1,000 times from Warren Buffett: never lose, rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2 is never forget rule number 1. Okay, so if there is a downturn, if there's a recession, don't panic. But don't panic doesn't mean don't do anything. You might want to rebalance. You might want to diversify your investments. And just remember that the recessions are temporary. We're investing for the long haul, okay? If you can, don't lock in the losses, okay? Try, if you have to sell some assets, unless you're going for tax harvesting, then sell the assets that have held their value, not the ones that have dropped the most. Okay, whoops. Okay, and just cash reserves, okay, and I think Russell talked about this too. We really want something on hand to pay for the emergency, because guess what? Your car is gonna break down, my car is gonna break down, the washer, the dryer, whatever it is. You wanna have something on hand that's liquid, whether it's cash, CDs, money market accounts, whatever. You really wanna keep something, not in the stock market, but just that you can get to fairly easily. Wrapping it up. Your budget should reflect your goals, and it should help you get where you want to go. Okay? Keep an open mind, if you would, to approaches to cutting costs or to increasing revenues. Protect what you have. And with all due respect to George Jones, you can get here from here.
Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce the next session. We all need to be able to navigate our comprehensive medical and dental plans. We have a great partner with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. It's my pleasure to introduce Bryce King to help us handle all of our medical, dental, and retiree medical needs. Bryce?
Hello. Thank you for having me. If I'm speaking too loud, just let me know. I've also been instructed to slow down a little bit when we're speaking, so I'll do my best. If I get going too fast, just raise your hand or something. I'll go ahead and repeat it. But again, my name is Bryce King. I'm here with Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'm part of our account management team, and I'll just be working you through your health plans. I would like to start off by saying, if you're currently on the Medicare Advantage plan, there will be no plan changes as we roll into 2026, so I know that's good for a lot of you all. And then also too, want to reiterate that you must be Medicare eligible, must be retired to be on this Medicare Advantage plan. Awesome, perfect. So the name for your health plan is going to be Medicare Advantage Prescription Drug Plan. It'll be an open access plan. I know it's a mouthful, I know it's a lot to digest, and so we'll be talking through exactly what that means, how you're covered, what's covered, and things of that nature. But just so you know, if you see that, that is the health plan that you're on. Here's a quick agenda of what we'll be touching on. We'll be going through the Medicare basics, so working through your Part A, Part B, Part C, and Part D. Again, that's a lot, making sure you understand what that means. We'll go through the meat and potatoes of your plan and how you're covered, work through your pharmacy overview, and then we'll talk about those extra health and wellness benefits, otherwise known as your supplemental benefits. And then we'll go through important reminders, frequently asked questions. And then lastly, if we have time, I'll open the floor for questions. Likely what will happen is I'll go back to my booth outside. And if you do have any questions, just come see me. Medicare basics. So what is a Medicare Advantage plan? A Medicare Advantage plan is going to be a private health insurance plan that covers everything that traditional Medicare covers. So if you're wondering, hey, is this particular thing covered on our plan? Best practice, I always recommend Google it. If it's covered on traditional Medicare, it's covered on your plan. Another thing that you can do is call that customer service number on the back of your card. They'll be able to tell you if it's covered. They'll be able to connect you with providers and things of that nature. But nevertheless, again, on this plan, it's going to be all encompassing. So it'll cover your Part A, your Part B, and your Part D. So no need to go out and get an additional prescription drug plan or anything like that. I know around this time too, you're probably getting inundated with info commercials late at night and things like that. Pay no attention to that, okay? This plan is miles ahead of what you will see on TV. And so make sure I want to hit on that. And then to touch on the extra health and wellness benefits that come with this plan, you'll see things like coverage with silver sneakers, rewards programs, your 24/7 nurse line, your virtual visits, things of that nature. If you didn't catch it or you don't know what I'm talking about, I do have a slide and we'll dive into those details as well. But nevertheless, again, it's going to cover everything that traditional Medicare covers. Awesome. Now diving into what these crazy letters that you probably see all the time, what that means. So your Part A is going to be your hospital insurance. So think of this, anything that's administered from an inpatient perspective, that's going to be your Part A insurance. Typically, when you are Medicare eligible, you'll be automatically enrolled into your Part A. It's not something that you have to actually manually do. As we transition your Part B, that's going to be your medical insurance. That'll be anything from an outpatient perspective. This is something that you have to manually enroll in. And we always advise retirees, this is something that you need to start at least 2 to 3 months before either your 65th birthday month or the time that you retire, if you are already Medicare eligible. So again, there is a premium associated with the Part B. You will pay that to the government. That's not something that is set by the city or that's set by Blue Cross Blue Shield. That's something that's set by the government. And just something that you just need to make sure that you stay on top of. And again, just to reiterate, you need to be enrolled in your Part A and your Part B to be enrolled onto this Medicare Advantage plan. You'll see the Part C bucket. That'll consist of all Medicare Advantage plans. So the current plan that the city is offering to its retirees will fall into that Part C bucket. And then lastly, you'll see your Part D. That's going to be your prescription drug coverage. I'll have slides dedicated to that bucket as well, and we'll dive into how you're covered and things of that nature. But just to give you a high-level overview of all the crazy letters that you see, that's going to be quick definitions there. Plan details. So this is what we all came here for. You'll see the city, Blue Cross Blue Shield, we worked really hard to be able to put together such a rich plan for you all. You see a lot of zeros across the board. Again, reiterating my point that you can't find this anywhere else. But you'll see your annual deductible will be $0. Your out-of-pocket max will be $0. Primary care and specialty care office visits, also $0. Inpatient and outpatient hospital services, $0 copays. You'll see your emergent and urgent care will be $0 copays as well. One thing I do want to do is stop and take the moment to highlight, if you're out of the country, you're only going to be covered for emergent and urgent care. I know you all are retired, and so you all have the liberty to travel. I'm a little jealous of that, but if you're out of the country, I don't recommend that you go skydiving or do anything dangerous or anything like that, because you're only going to be covered for emergent, urgent care. And then you'll have your physical, speech, and occupational services will be a $0 copay. Your ambulance service, $0 copay as well. Skilled nursing, diagnostic, advanced imaging will be a $0 copay as well. With the advanced imaging, there will be a prior authorization associated to that, which is very common. But nevertheless, it'll be a $0 copay. And then diving into your drug coverage, you guys are part of a 3-tier formulary. And for your tier 1s, it'll be a $10 copay. Your tier 2 will be a 20% coinsurance. Then your tier 3 will also be a 20% coinsurance. And no worry there, we'll dive a bit deeper into how you're covered with your drugs as well. Your hearing allowance will be a $0 copay. You'll have a $2,500 allowance for both ears, and it'll reset every 36 months. Okay, and that'll be for both ears. Your routine chiropractic services will be a $0, but you'll have a 20 visit limit. Your routine acupuncture services will be $0 as well, and then you'll have that 12 visit limit. The over-the-counter RX allowance, that'll be $20 a month, and it'll roll over month to month. But once you get to the end of the plan year, you'll lose it if there's anything left. So I always advise, I don't know, during Christmas or something, go stack up on ibuprofen or something like that, just to make sure you're not leaving anything on the card at the end of the plan year. You'll have your meals as well. This is an awesome benefit, and I'll have a slide dedicated to dive a little bit deeper into that as well. But this comes typically out after an inpatient hospital stay. Typically, once you leave the hospital, you're tired, or maybe you don't have family that lives near you and you're struggling to make meals and things of that nature. This is a great benefit. You'll have 14 meals over a 7-day period, and you can access this benefit a maximum of 3 times per year. And they're very nutritious meals from what I've heard. I've never had them, but I've heard that they're really great meals. They'll come frozen as well, so just a great benefit there. And then you'll have your non-emergency transportation services. That'll be a $0 copay, and that'll be up to 12 one-way trips to planned approved location. So You can't go to the casino or anything like that. You have to go to a plan approved location, has to be to your doctor's office and things like that. Let's see, here we go. Prior authorization. So really want to make sure I hit on this. Prior authorizations are not your responsibility. That is absolutely the responsibility of your provider. Something that they should take care of before you step foot into the doctor's office. If you do run into any issues with prior authorization, call that number on the back of your card. We can place a phone call to your provider to, one, just educate them on how to work with your health plan, then also just to walk them through step by step on what forms they need to submit and how they need to submit it. But just so there's no worry there, I know commonly with retirees, they are very concerned with prior authorizations. Not your responsibility, something that should be taken care of for you. And if they do administer a service and they fail to get the prior authorization, that provider will have to absorb that cost of service. Pharmacy overview. So again, y'all are going to be part of a 3-tier complete formulary. You'll see a great breakdown of each tier. Your tier 1s are going to be your preferred generic. Your tier 2 will be your non-preferred generic. And then lastly, your tier 3 will be your preferred brand. So if we look at that retail for 30-day supply column there, you'll see for a tier 1, it'll be a $10 copay. For your tier 2, you'll see a 20% coinsurance. But then you'll see those minimums and those maximums. So let's say a particular drug is $200, or let's say it's $100, right? And it's a $20, that brings your 20% to $20. You're going to be required to pay that minimum of $30 because that $20 doesn't hit the minimum. And then vice versa if it was over. And then the same thing for your tier 3 as well, will be a 20% coinsurance, but then you'll see the minimum increase to $50 and then you'll see the maximum increase to $100. But nevertheless, this is going to be your drug coverage. You will see some cost savings if you opt to do a home delivery for a 90-day supply. You'll see that it is a $20 copay for like your tier 1s, for example. And I know it doesn't seem like much, but you never know. That could be very beneficial over a period of time. But then also just a great benefit as well if you're living more of remote locations. If you live, I personally live out in Liberty Hill. Say you live out in Bertram, there's not a ton of pharmacies out there, so definitely something that you can leverage if you live in more remote locations or don't have a way to get to the pharmacy and things like that. And on this next slide, we should dive a bit deeper into it. Oh, never mind, just kidding. Manufacturer coupons. So this isn't something new for the 2026 plan year, but for this year, it was new and something that we just recently implemented. It's a federal law. You can't use a manufacturer coupon in conjunction with your Part D coverage. And so, again, I know it's new. We're not saying that you can't use a manufacturer coupon. You just can't use it in conjunction with your Part D coverage. Medicare Part B drug benefits. So, common confusion that we see amongst retirees is, hey, Bryce, what's the difference between Part B drugs and Part D drugs? Common rule of thumb that I like to apply is that anything that has to be administered to you through a professional, any drug, so think flu vaccines or flu shots, vaccine, things of that nature, that's going to fall in that Part B bucket, and that's going to be covered at a $0 copay. And so that's the greatest way to kind of differentiate it. Anything that you get that is self-administered, that's going to fall into your Part D bucket, and that'll be the benefits that we just discussed a couple of slides ago. But nevertheless, again, your flu vaccines are going to fall in that bucket. Your nebulizer solutions like albuterol, things like that, diabetic test strips, those will all fall in that Part B bucket, and it'll be a $0 copay. There it goes, the home delivery pharmacy. So at the bottom of the screen there, you'll see the 3 options that you can leverage if you do opt to use a home delivery. It'll be Walgreens mail service, it'll be through Express Scripts, or it'll be through Amazon Pharmacy. You will be required to set up your account and provide your member ID if you do opt to leverage the home delivery benefit. But nevertheless, again, a great benefit if you're remote or don't have the means to be able to get to the pharmacies and things of that nature. Pharmacy transition benefit. So you are eligible for a one-time 30-day supply at the pharmacy of non-covered or restricted drugs during the first 90 days of enrollment. Drugs eligible for transition benefits consist of Part D drugs that are not on the formulary or drugs that require a utilization. So think of prior authorization, quantity limit, or step therapy. those are all drugs that will qualify for a transition benefit. Also, I didn't touch on this, but a formulary is a drug list for all of you who may not know what a formulary is. But nevertheless, that's going to be your pharmacy transition benefit. Extra health and wellness benefits. So this is where we really start to differentiate ourselves from traditional Medicare. On this plan, you'll have access again to the over-the-counter allowance. You'll have access to your hearing aid allowance and then also additional hearing aid discounts and benefits. You'll be able to leverage those virtual visits, Hinge Health, Teladoc, otherwise known as Livongo, those meals at home, Blue 365, Silver Sneakers Fitness Program, non-emergency transportation, Catapult Health, Rewards Program, Wonder Health, and then the 24/7 nurse line. And we'll dive a bit deeper into each one as we continue on. True Hearing. So you'll commonly see True Hearing, say if you go to open enrollment events and things like that. I actually have a flyer out at my booth. True Hearing is a hearing provider that we're contracted with. You don't have to use True Hearing as your hearing provider, but if you do, you will receive additional discounts and benefits. All of those discounts and benefits will be located on the flyer outside, but just want to make sure I do reiterate, you do not have to use True Hearing as your hearing provider to access your hearing allowance. One of the common questions that we also get is, hey Bryce, can I use my hearing aid allowance on over-the-counter hearing aids? The answer to that question is going to be no. So you can't go to Costco and purchase your hearing aids and access that $2,500 hearing aid allowance that you have on this plan. Can't get them through Amazon Pharmacy either. It has to be through a hearing provider. But nevertheless, you do have the freedom to choose whichever hearing provider you want to receive your care from. Silver Sneakers. This is by far our most popular supplemental benefit. This is going to be our fitness benefit. So this is going to give you access to thousands of fitness locations nationwide. Commonly, it's going to be your commercial gym. So think 24-hour fitness, Crunch Fitness, things of that nature. They're going to all be in that Silver Sneakers network. And again, you'll have access to those gyms. You have access to their online classes. Personally, my grandma, she loves a kickboxing class at her local gym. That's in the Silver Sneakers network. I'm all for it as long as she's not using those moves on me. I'm all for it. But again, just a great way to stay in community, stay active, stay healthy, and things of that nature. So if you have any questions on that, I also have that flyer out at my booth as well. Rewards programs. So the rewards program gives members a healthy and easy way to earn up to $100 worth of gift cards from national and local retailers. You do this by completing certain healthy actions. Those healthy actions consist of your annual flu vaccine, diabetic screening, annual wellness visits, and things of that nature. I always say these are all things that you're probably already doing anyways because you have very great habits and you're doing all the things you should be doing. So why not go get your free gift cards? And so one of the things I do want to highlight is that you have to manually go enroll into this program. Visit that website that you see at the bottom of the screen and make sure you're manually enrolling in it so they can track all those actions throughout the year. But again, you'll receive those gift cards as well. And that's $100 worth of gift cards, not a $100 gift card. So I want to make sure I highlight that. Virtual visits. So this is going to be a benefit that's administered through MD Live. The virtual visit, you're going to cover things like allergies, anxiety, asthma, cold and flu, depression, pink eye, things of that nature. And again, it's going to be either via video chat or phone call. And one of the things that I always recommend, and I had a colleague tell me this, and I thought it was spot on. Make sure you enroll in your MD Live program when you're feeling healthy and you're feeling well, because the moment you get sick and you're trying to figure out how to enroll in it, your patients are going to run thin. So I always advise when you leave here today, if you're not enrolled in MD Live and you're on the plan currently, go ahead and enroll in it. Make sure you provide them with your member ID and all the things you need. That way, when you are sick, it's already set up. It's a seamless process. I don't know if you all have used MD Live, but it's a pretty cool thing, especially like if you're out of the state or maybe not staying at home and you have a little tummy ache late at night or something like that. You can have a registered clinician or a doctor to speak to immediately. So definitely a really good benefit. Make sure you're registered. Make sure you're registered. Okay. Meals at home, again, this is gonna have a prior authorization attached to it. It has to come after an inpatient stay. But again, one of those things where after you come out of the hospital, typically your energy's low. May not necessarily have the energy to prepare meals for yourself on a daily basis. So this is a great way to kind of give you a boost as you are released from the hospital. Again, it's gonna be 14 meals over a 7-day period, and it's gonna be a maximum of 3 times per year that you can access this benefit. If you have any additional questions, always call that customer service number on the back of your card. Non-emergency transportation. This plan, again, is going to include your 12 one-way trips to a plan-approved location per year. Coverage applies to travel to and from in-network primary care provider appointments, other in-network healthcare providers, and then the pharmacy to fill prescriptions after a healthcare provider list. Again, this is something that has to be medically approved. Call that customer service number on the back of your card to set up your ride. I always recommend you do that at least 2 to 3 days before your actual appointment. It's not gonna be something that you can do, the day of or last minute. But again, just has to be approved locations. Important reminders. 2025 Medicare Part B and D IRMA impact. So IRMA stands for Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. And what this is it's going to be a surcharge that's attached to your Part B premium based on your filing status in 2023. So for 2026, it'll be based on your 2024 filing status. Again, that's not something that's controlled by the city or controlled by Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's something that is completely controlled by the government, by CMS. So to learn more about how you could potentially be impacted, I would visit that screen there that you see that website that you see at the bottom of the screen.
Annual numbers?
Correct. So this one's a little outdated. There will be new annual numbers for 2026. So this is the current year's annual numbers. Here's a quick snapshot of what your Medicare Advantage ID card will look like. Again, just want to make sure I reiterate, this is all encompassing. So if you're going to the hospital, if you're going to your primary care office visit, if you're going to pick up your prescription from your pharmacy, this is the card that you're going to show. It's going to be all encompassing. You don't need your traditional Medicare card. You can file that, leave it at home. You're only going to have one card. So here you'll see common questions that we get. The first one will be, multiple providers and hospitals do not take Medicare Advantage. How will I ensure I can be seen? Again, this is an open access plan 1. And so the provider needs to be willing to do 3 things. It's see you as a patient, accept Medicare assignment, and willing to submit their bills to Blue Cross Blue Shield. If they are willing to do those 3 things, you can go see that provider. Okay, they do not have to be in network. You will have the same level of coverage out of network as you do in network. Okay, and then another common question that we get too is that, hey, I went to this particular provider and they don't want to see me. They say they don't accept my plan. Not accepting your plan and then not seeing new patients are kind of 2 different things. And so make sure if you ever do get denied, just make sure it's because, hey, I'm not seeing new patients versus, hey, I don't take Medicare Advantage, because those are going to be 2 different things. Second question. I have heard prior authorizations are required for everything on Medicare Advantage plan, and I never needed them before. Will I be getting denied for every service? Prior authorizations may be required for certain services that we already touched on, but it is very common in all of your Medicare Advantage plans. So just a way to make sure that you are receiving the proper care and the proper service that you may need. Question number 3. I was told if I join a Medicare Advantage plan, I will not be able to come back onto a Medigap plan and or need to go through underwriting. You can terminate this plan to go onto another Medicare Advantage plan or Medigap plan. If you switch to another plan within 1 year of initially enrolling in a Medicare Advantage plan, you do not need to go through underwriting because of the trial right. Last couple of questions. Will I get denied if I have pre-existing condition? Our plans do not have a pre-existing clause. There's no requirement to fill out a medical questionnaire. Will my non-Medicare eligible dependents be kicked off my benefits? your non-Medicare eligible dependents will not be impacted. They will be able to remain on the city's plan that they're currently acting or administering to their active employees. Would I be covered if I was traveling outside of the country? We've already touched on this. No skydiving. You are covered for emergent and urgent care.
Question. Let's say I have a life-changing event after I've retired and I want to add somebody to it. Let's say I get married and now I want to get my wife covered. Am I able to do that?
Yeah, you are able to do that. And I don't know if y'all saw the City of Austin benefit table outside because that's more of a question position for them. But if they do allow them to come onto that plan, which they should, and they are Medicare eligible, they will come onto this plan. Lastly, here's going to be the customer service line. You'll see this number also on the back of your card. We always recommend that you call that customer service number, and it's not a way that we want to pass you off or make, not answer your questions or anything like that. They are just positioned, they have all the tools and resources to look up your account, to look up your claims and all the things. And so this is always going to be your best route if you're wanting a timely answer. And again, they have a clause that they must get back to you in a certain amount of time. And so again, save this number, use this number. They're going to be an extension of your family. They're equipped to answer those questions. And then again, also visit that website that you see there pasted on the screen. You'll see presentations like the one I just went through. You'll see the flyers that I have out on my booth as well. They'll all be posted on that website.
Next stage of our conference today, I'd like to introduce our board chair, Ms. Diana Thomas. Diana is the Deputy Chief Financial Officer for the City of Austin. She's worked for the city for over 30 years and served also as the controller. She was appointed to the COAERS board in 2021 and is currently serving as our board chair. So help me welcome Ms. Diana Thomas. Diana.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So glad to see so many of you here and interested in what's going on at COAERS. I'm honored to guide you through this afternoon's State of the Fund session. On behalf of the board, I want to thank you for being with us today and for your continued interest in the long-term strength and sustainability of your pension plan. Your participation here and your contributions are important to the transparency and trust for the work that's done here at COAERS. During this portion of the program, you'll hear updates from our leadership team, including a review of our investment program, operational highlights and new initiatives, and an update on the financial health of the system and the value of your COAERS benefit. Following these presentations, we'll transition into a Q&A session, and we'll begin with questions that were submitted in advance and then open it up to the floor for audience members here today. So let's get started. I would like to introduce David Stafford, our Deputy Chief Investment Officer, to provide an update on the COAERS investment program. He'll share the strategies, performance, and priorities that guide the stewardship of the system's assets. Please welcome David Stafford.
Thank you, Diana. Fellow COAERS members, it's an honor to be able to present to you today. As Diana mentioned, my name is Dave Stafford. I'm the Deputy Chief Investment Officer here at COAERS, and I've been with the system for about 7 years now. The purpose of my presentation today is to give a high-level overview of the investment program, what some of our recent returns have been, what some of the recent activity has been in the program, and topics that we're covering, as well as maybe give you a teaser for some forward-looking initiatives that the board is likely to be considering over the coming quarters and years as well. So, kicking us off here, our investment team consists of 4 talented investment professionals, which you can see here. I'm happy to report that these are real pictures of my team and I. It's not AI generated, so if you see us walking around the office, please feel free to stop us, ask us any questions that you might have about the state of the fund or any investments that it may have. I think an important thing to note for us is obviously we're all qualified, we have all the designations you hope to see, but the most important thing I think about my colleagues and I is that we're also members of the system. So as we're thinking about what the best investment strategy might be for the COAERS fund, just as you're dependent on the COAERS benefit for your retirement, so are my colleagues and I. So we're there side by side with you and wanting success for the program over time. And that really helps to align our interests and make sure that we're doing our best work and motivating us every single day as we come into the office. So looking at the fund, we've got a 2024 in review slide here. The COAERS fund was approximately $3.5 billion as of year-end 2024. And the fund's broadly diversified across a lot of different asset types and investments. So it's invested in stocks, bonds, real estate, infrastructure, gold, some cash. There's a whole host of different investments that the fund holds over time. In 2024, the fund returned almost 10%. I'd round up, so I think it's 9.9, rounded up to 10%. And as you can see, over a calendar year returns in the chart here, in 5 out of the last 6 years, the COAERS fund has returned 10% or more, which I think is really a strong testament to how the market's been acting recently. But the one outlier there was 2022, which not just for the COAERS fund, but for all markets was a very challenging time. You had inflation high, bonds were doing poorly, stocks were doing poorly. There was kind of nowhere to hide as we invested. So we got a pre-submitted question that I'll answer now about the trailing returns of the fund as of year end. The 5-year trailing return as of year end 2024 was about 5.4%, which is maybe a lower figure because it's impacted by that 2022 number. I'd also remind everybody what happened in early 2020, which is the starting period there, which is when COVID hit. So you're right at the top before the COVID market crash, which impacts that number. Looking at more recent results year to date through June, it's been a strong year with the fund returning approximately 7%. And that increases that trailing 5-year number up to about 8%. So you see even just in a couple of quarters how quickly that can change depending on the measurement period. During the year, stocks did really well. They were up 13% in the COAERS portfolio. And I think a notable trend is that cash continues to be a pretty good place to park your money in relative to bonds, which you would expect to earn more. In 2024, the COAERS fund earned more on its cash than it did on its bonds. So it continues to be kind of an interesting and unusual market where cash is finally starting to pay something. You probably see that in your savings accounts as well. Now, with cash returns so high, you might ask me, hey Dave, why don't you just park the whole COAERS fund in cash, get your yield, have it be a risk-free investment? Which points us to one of the key tenets in the investment program is if the fund is going to be invested in assets that go up and down, you expect them to earn a pretty healthy premium over what you could have just gotten in cash. So that's what the chart here shows us. Each one of the bars in the bar chart shows us the trailing 10-year return for the COAERS fund, with the green bars on the bottom what you would have earned just in cash, and the blue representing what the COAERS fund earned as a risk premium in addition to what cash offered. So you can see as of year end 2024, the fund earned 4.5% in addition to what cash offered over the trailing 10 years for a total annualized return of 6.2%. Now, something that we're really proud of in the investment program is the excellent cost control. The board has adopted some investment beliefs that guide how we implement the investment program, and one of those is focusing on costs and ensuring that there's good value for money spent. My colleague Sarah and Russell and some others have talked a bit about budgeting and making sure that you're spending your money wisely. My staff and I, as fiduciaries to the fund, also feel very strongly about ensuring that any expenses that the fund incurs represent good value for the fund. To that note, in 2023, there was some major cost benchmarking performed that said, hey, let's look at how much the total investment program costs for COAERS. And how effective is that? And we have really good numbers to show here that I'm really proud of. Notably, a data point that came out of that study said, if you gave the COAERS fund and its investments to another public pension plan across the street in town, whatever, how much would it cost for them to implement the program compared to what we're doing now? And so that baseline cost expectation was $3.4 million higher than what the costs are for the COAERS fund, which puts us in the bottom decile for total costs. So very cost efficient, and I'm a big believer of any dollar that you save is a dollar earned. So that $3.4 million stays in the COAERS fund, gets invested every year, and continues to accumulate over time. So I think that's a real competitive advantage we have that's very aligned with the direction our board has given us in their investment beliefs over time. So that's kind of where we've been in the investment program. I also wanted to give you guys a kind of an update of like, what does my job look like? I work for the pensions investment team. What do we do on a day-to-day basis? Maybe what are some of the big projects that we undertake alongside our board and consultants? And so here we've listed some of the more recent accomplishments of the investment program. So in 2024 and into 2025, I've listed the 5 key things that we've done here, and I'll hit on these in the next slides too. The board selected a new general investment consultant. We've done some education on private markets strategies. That's a big and growing part of the investable universe for large institutions like COAERS. The board's adopted a new strategic asset allocation, which is the target mix between stocks, bonds, and other different types of investments. Updated the investment policy statement, and selected a new private markets consultant who's a specialist just in that part of the investment universe. So looking at that first accomplishment, the general investment consultant, following an RFP process in 2024, the board selected Makita as its general investment consultant. And the board hires a general consultant who has a broad sight on what's going on in the investment universe, and Makita certainly fits the bill where they are a third-party fiduciary that provides independent advice to the board in addition to staff. I'm wrong, you're wrong, we're all wrong from time to time on things that are opinions or what we think might happen. And it's really a helpful governance step in the investment program to have a third-party consultant give their perspective. They may see things differently than we do. That really leads to better outcomes and recommendations to the board over time. So since onboarding Makita mid-year last year, they've guided several important conversations with the board on asset class structure reviews, some education on private markets, which is a big topic in my presentation today. Maybe what some best practices are for investment policy, what we should be expecting from returns in the market over time, as well as the strategic asset allocation for the COAERS fund. So that first one of those topics that Makita led was education on private markets. I know in some circles, private markets or private equity can be a bad word, but in the institutional investment landscaping, it's really a very common investment strategies for large institutions like COAERS. So relative to its peers, COAERS has historically had very low exposures to private markets. And so the recent education and conversations that the board has had with staff and the consultant are, what are some of the secular trends that have changed in the market? How has the new contribution policy for the COAERS fund changed its expected cash flow profile? And what could be the pros and cons of pursuing these types of investments, similar to what many of our peers do? And one of those secular trends I think is worth noting here is in the chart, which shows the green line is the total number of publicly listed companies. You can see that peaked up in the early 2000s, kind of came down and has been mostly flat since then. Where the blue mountain chart represents what the value of those companies are. It's gone up 6 times. So there's been an interesting secular trend in the market that publicly traded companies, there are fewer of them and they've gotten a lot bigger, right? So if you think of like the Magnificent Seven stocks, maybe you've heard that term, some of those companies are worth $4 trillion, which is just an amazing amount of money that you would never really think is reasonable for a single company. But on the flip side of that is that companies are also able to stay private for longer periods of time now. They don't necessarily have to go and do an IPO to be able to raise money and grow. So you see the number of unicorn companies that are worth more than $1 billion has gone up exponentially over time. So we've seen a real a change in the mix of public and private companies over time, and the consultant has led some important conversations on what does that impact COAERS, and is that something that we should consider doing with the COAERS fund over time too. Those conversations have led to conversations on the strategic asset allocation for the COAERS fund, and the strategic asset allocation is our target mix of investments. How much is in stocks, bonds, and so on and so forth. And the consultant the board on recommendation from the consultant and from staff recently adopted a new strategic asset allocation that included some of these asset types. This new asset allocation is expected to increase expected returns by about 0.5% annually for the COAERS fund, which maybe is a small percentage, but as we think about a long-lived entity like COAERS that's maybe perpetual in nature, those returns really compound over time and are likely to be extremely additive to the COAERS fund. We've noted in the chart here a couple of those call-outs, maybe they're hard to read on the slide here, but those are private credit and private equity, and you can see that the expected returns on a forward-looking basis for those asset classes are much higher than they're available in the public markets. So being a large institutional investor, that's something that was prudent for the board to consider and add into the strategic asset allocation. During this update of the strategic asset allocation, the board also reviewed the investment policy statement. A great governance item for the investment program is having a written policy that says, here are the objectives of the fund, here are the things we believe in, and defining roles and responsibilities in the investment program. Alongside adopting that new updated strategic asset allocation, the board adopted updates to the investment policy statement, which simplified the policy and allowed it to be more streamlined in nature. Staff believes that these are good improvements to the policy that are going to help us run more efficiently. And I think they're also going to improve board oversight of the investment program over time. And finally, with the addition of private markets and the strategic asset allocation, the board recently underwent an RFP process to select a specialist consultant that only focuses on private markets. Private equity, private credit, these types of investments are complex. There's a lot of risks and things that need to be considered within them. And a specialist consultant eats, sleeps, and breathes those types of investments all day, every day. We're happy to announce that Allborn was selected as a result of that process and just recently onboarded within the past couple of weeks. So the board has a new independent voice who has a broad coverage and broad and deep coverage, I should say, of the private markets universe to help advise on how to build out these programs over time. So those are the initiatives that we've been undergoing here recently. On a forward-looking basis, are going to continue to fine-tune the policies and guidelines for the investment program, particularly in light as we look to build out more private markets exposures. And we want to be thoughtful in doing so. In this part of the investment universe, you can't just roll in on day one and say, we're going to put all our money in fund A. It takes time, and you need to be thoughtful and patient in doing so. Additionally, we'll continue to refine our processes in line with best-in-class industry practices as well as this part of the portfolio develops over time. So that concludes my remarks. It's a pleasure to talk to you all today. And again, if you see me later, don't hesitate to ask me questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Next, we'll hear from Russell Nash, Deputy Executive Director, who will provide an overview of recent operational developments and new initiatives at COAERS, including updates to our member services, outreach efforts, and internal improvements. Please welcome back Russell Nash.
Thanks, Diana. It's me again. I'll be brief. It's important for you as members of COAERS to demand transparency for us. That's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today, is show you what happens operationally, show you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the value that we're providing to you. First of all, I've had several people come up to me today and say, how do I make an appointment with COAERS? This is a great opportunity for you to do that. You can also get an appointment with us online. You don't have to talk to anybody. You just go onto our website, get an appointment, and it will be confirmed on your phone, and then you're ready to talk to us. So access to us is really important, and take advantage of that. Also, I've talked about this many times today, is Member Direct. Member Direct is one of your pro tips to be able to understand COAERS, to begin understanding how you're going to replace your pre-retirement income with your COAERS benefits. It provides a lot of functionality, and here's some of the enrollment numbers. If you're looking at this from a management perspective, how many people are taking advantage of that? Well, as of July 1st, we had 9,999 people enrolled in Member Direct. That's a fantastic opportunity for all of those people to get ahead of their retirement planning by using Member Direct. Active members, if you haven't reviewed your beneficiary, do so today in Member Direct. You can do that. You can also look at your contribution balances, estimated benefit, like we talked about earlier this afternoon, declare proportionate time, sign up for seminars and events, etc., etc. Retired members, you can get your 1099 and you don't have to wait for the post office. You can just get into Member Direct, get your 1099 to file your taxes. You can also review your benefit summary, your deductions. We talked about medical deductions today. Also, change your beneficiaries or track your beneficiaries. And then also, this was brought up with Lovey's presentation, is if you're returning to work, you can actually go in and see your hours that you've worked in that rolling 12-month period to see if you're under the 1508 limit. So now we reran the numbers on Member Direct, and we have hit 10,000 people. So let's hear a round of applause for everybody using Member Direct. We had to drag that guy into the computer and to do that. We're also really serious about service delivery to you in the spirit of transparency. We care about your experience here. Hopefully today is a testament to that. but we're also doing two other things. The first thing is we're hiring a company who works with pension plans to do external survey. So they come in as a neutral party and determine how we're stacking up with other pension plans. That company is called CEM, and you'll see our total service score on the right of the screen there. There's a lot of bars there. The gray, light gray bars are all the pension plans that were surveyed. You'll see the dark bars are our small peer group. These are smaller pension plans like COAERS, and we're the darkest bar. So in total service, we're above our average for our peers, which is the dotted line, and above the average for all plans. What that means for you in detail, let's take a look. In terms of pension estimates, we just talked about that. We're the dark bar at the far left, doing pretty good. In terms of our contacts with you, we're still at the very far right, doing pretty good. In terms of member presentations like today, we're with the hunt. To the right of the chart, that's really good. So these are independent results from the CEM group. So we are really proud of that, and we will continue to try to measure up. We are also listening to you. Everybody says this, we actually do it. Teresa Cantu is in the back of the room. She looks at these numbers all the time, and we review them. Every time you come and encounter us, every time someone retires, every time we do a seminar, we will send out a feedback form. We want the good, the bad, the ugly. Any suggestions to improve, we take them seriously. Here's an example of some of the comments that we've got. Levy, whom you saw earlier today, she received a whole paragraph. Congratulations, Levy. I think that was your sister who came in, so wonderful. Gloria Cordero, who you've met outside, also a whole paragraph. Sarah Habel, who is here, has done a fantastic job. But look at the last one. The last one isn't so good. It's a suggestion. Hey, what about this unused sick leave stuff? I don't understand it. That's what this member is saying. And you all need to communicate better between deferred comp, HR, payroll, and power. We are taking this under consideration. We're developing programs for unused sick leave as we speak. So we're taking this seriously. We're actually counting things in order to manage. You've got to make sure that you can measure what you're doing. You can think of our office, other than customer service, member services is also like an insurance claims office. So when you retire, you fill out paperwork. That claim goes through a QA process and then eventually heads to our finance team to get you paid. We did 345 new retirements last year, 890 one-on-one counseling sessions. We paid over 1,000 benefit claims, and we handled 6,100 inquiries from you. We pay over $269 million in benefits. That's a huge economic impact to the Central Texas area. Most of our retirees stay in Central Texas. So if you can imagine, $269 million every year coming from COAERS is a huge economic impact to our community. We are committed to doing more of these educational events. As I mentioned, on September 3rd, we're doing a long-term care seminar. Please join us for that. That's at noon. We're doing planning just for women, budgeting, tax prep, aging, frauds and scams, Medicare. We'll have Blue Cross and Blue Shield back. And then we also do routinely mid-career seminars, pre-retirement seminars, and we're always at NEO. I mentioned this earlier. We have a free power of attorney form now in Member Direct. It'll be there in August. It's not a general power of attorney. It won't help you with the bank or anywhere else, but it will help you with COAERS, reduce your legal expenses, fill out a power of attorney form in Member Direct, bring it in, we'll have it notarized for you and keep it on file so your agent can act on your behalf if you cannot. And maintain your beneficiaries. Our team, led by Maren Ramon and Teresa Cantu, are doing pop-up events at departments to ensure that you have an opportunity to see us and update your beneficiary and take care of your COAERS business. This building is quite beneficial. It helps offset our administrative expenses. We are a landlord. We have 3 other tenants, and it does make money for the fund. And so we get to enjoy the benefit of it for our offices and events like this, and it's helping you fund the retirement fund long term. We're also trying to be a good community partner. We're on the Mueller Property Owners Association as well, so we want to contribute back to where we office. I want to take a moment to peel back the staff a little bit so you have some transparency into people that you don't normally see. The first 2 individuals are on our finance team. Our Chief Financial Officer, Ewing Quintanilla. She has been with COAERS since 2018. She comes from the state of Texas, some large agency institutional investors, And Candace Nolte, our controller, comes to us from the Texas Municipal Retirement Fund. So if you receive a retirement check, you have these two to thank for that, Ewing and Candace. They also handle our audit, our financial reporting, and all the banking that goes on here at COAERS. On the IT side, we have two qualified individuals who are skilled in cybersecurity issues, our IT manager, Blake Lehman, and Sravani Bakhtu as well. So they're making sure our systems are running properly and that we have the appropriate cybersecurity measures in place. Also, if you've enjoyed this facility, you have Michelle Mahoney to thank. Michelle has been with us for 16 years and is our Senior Services Officer. You might also have seen her help people with disability claims or our board elections. And finally, you saw Sarah McCleary earlier today. She's our Financial Literacy Specialist in Ombuds. This is a new position. If you don't know what an ombuds is, it's a person outside of our member services office who can help you with claims. Sometimes claims get stuck, you don't know where they are. Sarah can help navigate the claims process for you and any other COAERS member. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Russell. So I have to take a moment of privilege here and describe one of my experiences in working with Russell's team. So about 3 months ago, I got a letter in the mail from COAERS and it said, hey, we don't have a beneficiary designation form for you. So here's a beneficiary designation form. Get it filled out and bring it in to us. And I'm like, I've been with the city for 33 years. There's no way that I have not filled out a beneficiary form and submitted it. But I go online to Member Direct and sure enough, there's no beneficiary listed. So I immediately, I'm sitting on the board. I'm in this really important role. I'm the board chair. I should have all my ducks in a row, right? So it's just here to say that you get busy and you forget about some of these important things. But Russell's team was very welcoming and helpful. I filled out my form. I came in, they notarized it for me. They got it all submitted, and now I'm all in compliance. So I would suggest to each of you, if you haven't gone and looked online to make sure, don't assume that you've taken care of it because you may not have. So I just wanted to add that because I thought it was very important, and it was communication coming from them unsolicited by me that prompted me to get my information filled out. So thank you very much. Up next, we have, to close out our segment, we turn to Christopher Hansen, our Executive Director, who's going to discuss the long-term financial health of the retirement system and reaffirm the value of your benefit. Please welcome Christopher Hansen.
Thank you, and actually I'm going to go log on to Member Direct and make sure I've done my beneficiary form. All right, so I'm going to speak today on the long-term financial health, give you an update on the funding report of the retirement system, and talk a little bit about another report that the board undertook that helps affirm that funding. So before I get into that, excuse me, first I want to thank everybody, both our active members and our retired members, for your service to the city of Austin. I've lived back in Austin for over 20 years now. I love it. This is a great city, and it wouldn't be what it is without you. And it is a privilege and an honor to work as a steward on your behalf. And I know I speak for the entire staff. We really do love working at a mission-driven organization that supports the people that make this city great. Everybody gets up, we know what we're here for, we all value what you've contributed and take seriously being stewards on your behalf. So just wanted to thank you, and I know we talk about it in our staff meetings. It's great to work at an organization where everybody's rowing in the same direction. Everybody has the same beliefs and is committed to that. It makes the camaraderie and the culture here really, really amazing. So thank you again. As I talk about the funding, those of you who have been to these meetings before have probably seen my chart as I explain, but I think for folks who are new, this is helpful, and for those who've seen it before, maybe a refresher. What you have here is basically the funding mechanism for a defined benefit plan, and I'll walk you through what this is. On the left side of the chart, these are the inputs into the retirement system. That is the contributions, both from you, the active member, as well as the plan sponsor, in this case, the City of Austin. And those go into the retirement system. So that builds up the trust fund and the assets. What comes out of the retirement system are the benefits that are paid every month, And annually, as Russell just mentioned, last year, approximately $269 million, as well as the expenses. And as we've noted before, we're a very cost-efficient fund, but we do have to have expenses over time. They're usually nominal in the scale here. So if I'd drawn those pictures to scale, the expenses would be much smaller. You probably couldn't read it, but those are the outputs. And over time, to have a sustainable and a funded system, those need to generally balance out. If they're unbalanced and you're tipping more to the right, where your benefit costs and expenses are higher, that's going to create what's called an unfunded liability. And that bit can build up over time. And those of you who've been here and know, COAERS does have an unfunded liability. It's been a challenge. We'll talk about how the board and the city have addressed that in a few slides. Part of that was due to the fact that on that contribution slide or box, that was a fixed contribution rate. So regardless of the experience on the investment income side or the benefit side, predominantly the two biggest, we're getting the same amount every year. And so it wasn't adjusting, and that was creating an unfunded liability that kept growing and kept creating challenges for us. Those of you who've been here before have heard me talk about the reasons. I won't get into all that. If you want to, happy to meet with you and give you the full debrief, probably take a couple hours, but I live for this stuff, so I'm happy to do that. Just trying to set this up for you as we go through the next slides and talk about where we're at today and how we got there. But we did have an unfunded liability, it had continued to grow, and it was creating issues for the retirement system. Now, we weren't at a place where we were going to be insolvent, but as you looked at it long term, we weren't meeting best practices, and so we needed to make some changes. And what also underpins this is we project out our assumptions about the income, this is called the rate of return, projected future benefit payments, and that's our actuary, the COAERS actuary that the board hires, has to use assumptions to project the long-term health of the system. That typically comes out with a funding period, and that is a measure of how close the system is to paying it off. It's kind of like a mortgage. A 40-year funding period is kind of like a 40-year mortgage, if something exists. So in pension funds, you've got 40, 50-year mortgages. That's not normal. What you're looking for is something in that 15 to 20 range. And as a fixed contribution rate plan for so many years, as I move to the next slide, our actuary, basically, and I have the little wizard standing over the pot, that's how it was, our actuary would take all the experience of the system. They knew the contributions, they knew the investment returns, they had the assumptions to project, and eventually there would be an output of what's your funding period? And it would vary from year to year. That was kind of the unknown. Is it 30 years? Is it 26 years? Is it 34? It would jump year to year based on the experience of the system. Markets are up, maybe it's 26 years. Markets are down, or we have more retirements than we anticipated or assumed, it goes up. That is not a best practice. And so many of you are aware of this, but the COAERS board and the city of Austin partnered together, and in the 88th legislative session, we got Senate Bill 1444 passed. And that established a new contribution policy for the retirement system. So going back to the prior slide here, instead of it being a steady fixed rate, that contribution amount would change over time depending on the needs of the system. That is a best practice. And I want to thank the city. Very few plan sponsors do that. The city of Austin deserves a ton of credit. The group and the finance team led the way, convincing the council, the manager, and did a phenomenal job of working with COAERS to get this legislation passed. So that puts COAERS on a much better trajectory. What also took place in that legislation was we took the unfunded liability that had built up over time as of December 31st, 2022, and the city's basically put that on a 30-year payment schedule, like a fixed 30-year mortgage. And I'll show you the slide later, but essentially they're taking on what is approximately, and I'll show you, up to $2 billion in total liability that is just going to be paid off over 30 years. They know what they're going to pay every year, but that's a huge financial commitment. And again, I want to give a shout out to the city for their willingness and that fiscal discipline to do that, because that really helps secure the long-term financial health of the system. By doing all this, it better positions COAERS to adapt if we have a down market or if the assumptions are a little bit off and we need a little bit more money. That helps manage the system and keep us on track for that funding period and achieving full funding. Now, we have a defined benefit plan, and this was a question that was pre-submitted, so I want to kind of address it. One of the great advantages of a defined benefit plan is your benefits are not impacted by the volatility of the market. So imagine you're planning to retire and you have a 401k, and you're thinking, oh, April 2025 sounds like a great time to retire. I want to get out there before the summer. And then Liberation Day happens, markets go crazy, and you're probably having some anxiety about, oh my gosh, my 401k just lost 15%. Well, you don't have to worry about that with a defined benefit. Your benefit is set. It's not going to be impacted by that, so you don't have to worry about those fluctuations. We have to manage it internally, but in a large trust fund, we are always positioned to make sure we can make those benefit payments. So that is a great benefit of the defined benefit plan. And I did some of that work last year, talked to you guys about DB versus DC. If you're ever interested in that, we can also sit down with you and kind of talk about the comparisons. But COAERS is now much better positioned from a long-term perspective, both because that legacy liability, that unfunded liability is going to be exhausted, paid down. And now we have an actuarial contribution rate, which helps the system in down times get more money in. So that improves the financial stability and security of the retirement system. So with that in mind, let me hit some of the key highlights from our funding report. So we get an actuarial report from the COAERS actuary. It's dated December 31. That's our fiscal year. So our actuary takes all of our financial information, all of the member data, salaries, longevity, things like that, as well as the returns of the investment program, and comes up with, it looks like I'm missing a letter here. Sorry, HE amortization, typo. The great thing is I can stand in front of you and I know what the amortization period is, that funding period. It's 29 years. Last year when I spoke to you, it was 30 years. When I speak to you next year, it's going to be 28 years. This is one of the great benefits of that legislation is it's now set in place. The actuary knows the funding period. They're not standing over the pot trying to figure it out. What they are trying to figure out though is what is the actuarial contribution rate? And the city is putting a little bit more money in next year to address some of the losses that we're still taking, but that helps balance that scale out so the long-term security of the system is there. So a couple of items, as Dave mentioned, 2022 was a brutal year. We are still taking some losses. We smooth those losses out, and part of the reason you do is in an actuarial contribution model, you don't want the plan sponsor to have to suddenly put a lot more in the next year if you have a down year. From a budgeting perspective, it's very difficult. So you kind of take those over a 5-year period. Same thing with gains. You don't want if you have a great year and you get 30% returns, you don't want the plan sponsor cutting contributions, as we all know. That money may be diverted somewhere else. And then how do you get it back to the retirement system? So you kind of smooth it to keep those contribution rates more level over time. So we're still smoothing in that. We took a $51 million deferred loss this year. We still have $73 million left. And if Dave and his team are lucky, and it's not them, hopefully financial markets continue to improve, we have another 10 plus year, that'll probably wipe that out. And we won't need to take the loss. The actual will offset it with their 5-year smoothing for those gains. We also took a small hit on higher salary increases than the assumption was. It's great for our active members, obviously more money in your pocketbook, but from the assumption perspective, what the system was anticipating, it was a little bit higher, and that leads to slightly higher benefit payments in the future. So again, one of the things we do periodically, and the board deserves a lot of credit for following a best practice, we ask the actuary to review those assumptions, because if they're not on point, that can create issues, so I'll get into that in a minute. So we did do some changes the board approved to the assumptions, and that increased the normal cost slightly. And now this is just to talk about the funding period. This chart, and it's a little small, sorry, it's 30 years of payments, but you can see there at the very bottom, that dash, where the unfunded liability goes away. And this is a set schedule. This is a dollar amount. This is like a fixed mortgage. It is going to be exhausted. Again, thank you to the city for taking the initiative and the fiscal discipline to do this. Most plan sponsors wouldn't be doing this, and they kept the defined benefit. State of Texas, they made reforms and then they put everybody in a cash balance plan. So this is a great chart to see, and you just see how it declines. So 2053, so if any of us are here presenting to you, or maybe I'll be in the audience at that point, we'll know that legacy liability has been exhausted in 2054's presentation. And that, again, to give you comfort, the commitment to paying down the unfunded liability, making sure the system is well funded. We're not even close to not being able to pay benefits, but when you're thinking 30 years out, we don't know what the world's going to look like. So having that commitment to pay that off is huge, and thank you to the city. So that's a great thing. So I mentioned a little bit about the assumptions and how that impacts funding. So this year, the Board of Trustees undertook what is called actuarial experience study. This is actually something that's required. We built it into our statute, so the board can't escape it, but the board obviously follows best practices and does this regularly. It's also consistent with Texas Pension Review Board standards, but essentially what this is an opportunity to look at the assumptions. So if you don't look at your assumptions, over time you can misrepresent the costs. If you are overly aggressive in your assumptions, you can put more kind of financial burden on the current generation of members. But if you're too, say liberal, but if you're not conservative enough, or if you're too optimistic is probably the right word about what the future experience is going to be, you may put future costs on the future generation. So you're trying to find the right balance, the board is. They're looking to our actuarial consultant for direction there. The kind of sweet spot is slightly conservative. So you build in a little bit of room to get actuarial or financial gains each year, but you're not so conservative that you're putting a lot more burden on the current generation of employees. And so we did do the experience study this year, and sorry, I skipped ahead one slide. I seem to be missing a slide. Oh, no, that's because it was trying to talk about the findings. Well, let me just tell you what the findings were in general. So all of our major assumptions were consistent. So the assumed rate of return was supported by the actuary in looking at the strategic asset allocation. We're at 6.75%. That's a little more conservative than a lot of our peers, but actually having a slightly lower number gives us a better chance of achieving that. And hopefully, again, we outperform and get gains. You know, if you assume 7.5% or 8% annually and you get 7.25%, well, you're underperforming. Well, if we get 7.25% over the next 10 years, we've got a 50 basis point annualized advantage that actually goes into the fund that helps fund us faster. So being slightly conservative is helpful. If you take 2%, let's say, something ridiculous like that, well, then everybody's gonna have to kick in more money now. And that's not a realistic number. Hopefully we can do much better than that. So all the major assumptions were supported by the actuary and actual plan experience. There were a couple changes. One was to that salary assumption. We've been taking a few losses every year, so the actuary recommended increasing that. The idea being that when I stand up here next year, potentially, I'm not reporting an actuarial loss of 80-something million, maybe it's a gain. And so those are the things that help actually fund the system better. If you're taking gains, that's a plus in kind of your book as opposed to a minus, so that helps fund the system. So it was kind of around the edges. But we also have a new process where, because we partner with the city and they, with their actuarial contribution rate, are on the hook for some of these changes, they have an opportunity to get an independent actuary of their choosing review the board's experience study, and they can come back and say, everything looks good within a certain range, or hey, we have concerns about your assumptions. This year, the city's actuary came back and said everything's within that certain range in the statute, and so the experience study moves forward and has been adopted. So this is a new process for us, but again, I want to thank the board and the city. This is a best practice. Not doing this could lead to potential financial challenges in the future, so staying on top of those assumptions is critical. So that kind of wraps up my presentation. I again want to thank the board and the city for their commitment. It is really important in making sure, not now, because we have plenty of money to pay benefits, but we're thinking 40, 50, 60 years from now, you got to be thinking that far ahead as a defined benefit plan, making sure we continue to provide those promised benefits for those future generations of city employees. So thank you all very much, and I'll turn it back over to Diana.
Thank you very much, Chris. So we'll now move into the Q&A session. Over the past few weeks, we've received thoughtful questions from our members in advance of today's event. Thank you to everyone who took time to submit your questions and share what's on your mind. We'll begin by addressing a selection of those pre-submitted questions, and then we'll open the floor to you to ask any questions from the audience. If we're not able to answer your question in this session, COAERS staff will have responses ready and available for you after the event. So the questions we received cover multiple topics, including funding, investments, benefits, COLAs, and more. We'll start with a few questions about legislative and governmental actions. So the first question is, with the recent passing of the Trump administration's Big Beautiful Bill, what impacts, if any, are foreseen that will affect pensions? Specifically, how will our retirement benefits be affected, and what to look out for, and what tips do you have to reduce the risk of losses? And will there be any changes to deductions? Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So first off, I think earlier presentations touched on some of the tax and healthcare related items. That really is all from the Big Beautiful Bill, that anything that you should be thinking about. There were no provisions that impact the defined benefit, our direct administration, or anything related to the investment or operational programs. So that's a short, simple answer. And as far as tax deductions, I think that's probably a discussion. If you have concerns, reach out to our member services team directly, because it's going to be on an individual basis. You know, we can't give an answer that's going to be tailored to everybody here in the room. But from a defined benefit perspective, kind of the things that we've been talking about, there was nothing in there that impacts COAERS.
Thank you. Investments, Dave, you mentioned this in your presentation, but can you just remind us what that 5-year average rate of return for the COAERS retirement system is?
Yes, ma'am. It was 5.4% as of year end 2024, and as of Q2 2025, jumped up to 8% annualized.
Great, thank you so much. Question number 3, under plan funding and COLAs, what's the status of and the long-term solvency of the retirement system? And Chris did a whole presentation on that, so I'm going to let you take a few highlights.
So it's strong. I think this, even though our amortization period is outside the Pension Review Board recommended guidelines, the best practice would be 20 years and under, we're now on a trajectory to hit that. And I think this is because of the legislative changes, we know where we're at and we know where we're going to be. Where before, we would just, again, have to wait for the actuary to put all the stuff into a spreadsheet or whatever he used, kick out that information and know where we stood. So I think from a historical perspective, we're in a much better place. We still have work to do. Obviously, we're at 29 years. It's not where we want to be, but we're taking a step forward every single year. And that's the first time the system can actually say this. So I think it's very strong in that regard.
Thank you. Is there
the actual benefit, but a cost of living adjustment's not built into that funding equation. Pension Review Board guidelines specify that you can't grant any cost of living or benefit increase if you're outside of a 25-year funding period, but they typically won't even approve it if you're not under 20, closer to 15. So that's definitely down the road right now. We understand the challenges that retirees are facing, particularly with the inflationary environment that's going on. It's been even worse than in the early 2000s. What we've tried to focus on, and I think we've done a lot of education, since we can't give a COLA, we want to try to find ways to educate our retirees on options they have, whether it's even things like ways to save money, to budget. Since we can't do that, how can we add some value to our retirees and better position them, or folks who are about to retire? And then eventually, hopefully, we'll get to that point where we can grant one. The process is still the same. We had a process pre-legislation where the actuary would have to recommend or approve that we're in a funded position. The board would then have to approve, and then the city would have to approve. That's codified in statute, so the process for granting one hasn't changed. And unfortunately, because we're not meeting the actuarial guidelines by the PRB, our actuary is even in that first step. But we are trying to, as I said, provide better education, touch points for our retirees, whether it's healthcare, like you've seen today, We're doing more seminars, more outreach to try to at least better serve you while we are waiting to get into a position to grant a COLA.
I think the one thing that I would add to that, because in addition to being the chair of the board of COAERS, I'm also the plan administrator for the city's 457 plan. So that is a great way to supplement your retirement income. You can draw from it as little as you need or as much as you need in any year. So if you start saving early, or if you do use those catch-up features to contribute additional amounts to that 457 plan, you'll have something else that can supplement that income when COAERS' retirement contributions are remaining flat. Next question. What's the most important steps in retirement planning? Russell?
Thanks, Diana. We talked about that earlier. The first thing and the most important thing is to realize that it's not one thing. It's a series of success factors that you need to cycle through at any age or any stage. We talked about them earlier. You don't have to be superhuman at all of them, but you can't ignore any of them. You've got to be about that business to be prepared in the future. Some pro tips that we talked about are knowing your numbers, run a COAERS benefit estimate, run a social security estimate. Deferred comp, as we've talked about, is a must-do, it's a jewel. You have access to free financial planning, so a human being can actually put all of this together for you, take advantage of that. Be thoughtful about why you're retiring. Don't just show up here on a Monday morning because you're frustrated. You want a purposeful retirement. And define yourself or begin thinking about how you're going to define yourself as a retiree. Not just I'm a retiree from Austin Energy, it's here's what I'm going to do with my life post-retirement. So in so doing, if you can cycle through those key aspects, I think you'll find that you're a success.
And then our final question from the pre-submitted questions, why can we no longer buy years of service?
The good news is that you can buy years of service. There are several types of purchases. For example, if you're a part-time or temporary employee, that's called non-contributory time, and you can buy that, but you have to buy it at retirement. Our team of people can estimate that for you. You can purchase military service up to 48 months at retirement. You can buy airtime up to 60 months, supplementary service at retirement as well. And then you can buy prior service at any time. For example, if you've had a previous employment with the city, you withdrew your money, you came back, and you want to buy that time, you can do that at any time. So Madam Chair, you can still make those purchases.
So do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
Question, in Russell's presentation, 3 categories of participants were active, retirees. What makes up the other 4?
Yeah, there are people who have city employment who've contributed to our fund and moved on. Those people are in 2 categories. Either they withdraw their funds or roll them over so they become inactive. So we call those the inactive category. And then there's the people that value the defined benefit plan, so they've kept their money on deposit with the system, and they're preparing for an early retirement benefit at 55 with 10 years or a full retirement later on. And so they're preserving their rights to draw that defined benefit in the future. Smart folks.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
I guess I had one question and then some comments that I wanted to add. I may have missed this, but it seems like in the past, we've had sort of a number that showed the funded amount and then the unfunded amount, basically. And we've got a 29-year plan to pay off the unfunded amount. I don't know what, I think it was in the low 60s the last I remember. I'm just wondering if we have that.
Yeah, it's I believe about 62% right now. So we're still creeping up, and part of that is at a 29, anything over 20 years of a funding period, you're still getting that interest accrual on the unfunded liabilities we've talked about before. So until we get that paid down, get close to 20 years, so it's going to be slow increase in the funded percentage. Once we hit that, it's going to accelerate rapidly. So yeah, we're about 62% funded right now. And so yeah, you're right. It didn't move very much from last year.
Yeah,
and I just
hadn't heard the number.
Yeah, and my apologies for probably going through my slides trying to figure out. Great question though. Thank you.
No worries. Well, the other thing, I wanted to thank you all for all the work you all do. I know it's grueling work, and I've done that type of stuff in the past, and I appreciate all the effort you put in. I want to tell you all that every time I've been over here, the employees have just been really good and really helpful. gone out of their ways to try to make me feel comfortable. And I wanted to specifically tell you that Teresa Cantu has just been great with helping me and my partner in things we were doing. I couldn't say enough. I bothered her every few months about something, and she's been great to me every time, and I just wanted to add that in as well.
Thank you very much. When we do our debrief here, I'm going to reference you, and Teresa is an amazing employee. We have so many great people. She's a stellar example of the culture we promote here, and we're very fortunate to have her on our team.
That's been my experience.
Other questions? Yes.
Yes, if you already have a power of attorney that covers all your assets through a lawyer, do you need a specific one?
You do not. Great point. You don't want to confuse things by filling out our form if you already have one. You do not have to fill up. But if you already have one, make sure it's on file with us. We'll send you a letter confirming that. If you don't have it on file, that's a problem. So if you've got it, pull it out of the closet, bring it in, and we'll make sure that it's in your records. Great question.
And I also have another question about investment. So when y'all make decisions on private companies and investing,
Do you take into account the values of the city of Austin and to make sure that these private companies align with some of the missions and goals and values that the city of Austin has had for many years?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in private markets, headline risk is a much bigger risk to consider, right? So you want to be investing with general partners that are stewarding companies in the right direction to be able to grow them responsibly over time. So it's an important diligence item, is ensuring that we're partnering with general partners and investment managers who are trustworthy, essentially, and who try to do the right thing over time, because that tends to lead to better investment results as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add, one of the things with this private markets consultant is they do a lot of deep dive into social media, background checks, and things like that. I don't think this is being broadcast to them, but to the GP. But we look at that. I mean, that's critical. And I'll be acknowledging to our board asks these questions when we bring these things, particularly in private markets. It's less of an issue on the public side, but we've got a great informed board who push on that point that you're making. And so having that consultant that specializes in it gives us that additional information when we're reviewing that, because that is important to the success. Those people and how they behave can determine the outcome of those investments.
So that leads me to ask the question, your consultants, what are the fees that you're paying them for their services?
So off the top of my head, on a basis point, I'll leave that to you, Dave. I think the private market consultant that we just hired is about $425,000 annually. The highest quote during the RFP was $1 million plus. I mean, value was important. The board looked at it and had two finalists that were pretty much identical in being really strong in their work. One was like over $1 million a year and the other was under $500,000. And that factored in that economic thing. And we continue to, even when we invest, let's say in funds, we're going to be looking to drive costs as part of it. Because as Dave mentioned, your net return is what you take, and those fees make a difference. And in private markets, they tend to charge you more. And so we are always mindful of that fee load that goes into it, and not just who these people are, what are they charging is a big part of it. And you can see that in our return, like up to date, we've had a low cost program. We still want to target that even once we build that program out. Dave, I don't know if you have that in basis points.
No, I don't have the basis points number offhand, but I'd say that the fees that we're paying there, my comments, my presentations, I think represent very good value for money spent, because the dispersion of returns, the differences in outcomes in private markets can be so wide that you really want someone who's a specialist and is able to do that really well. Additionally, I know for full transparency, all the fees that we pay to consultants in the investment program are included in the annual comprehensive financial report, which is public as well. So obviously that consultant just came on, that's not quite published, but that will be published in our annual report as well.
And I guess the general consultant is,
Like
maybe,
the same range, yeah.
it's a little, I think it's in the threes, maybe now, 200 to 300, or is it? Well, we do special projects. Sometimes when we have them do a study, we gotta pay a little bit more. But again, I think when the board looked at it, that was a key component. And again, that's all built into those cost analyses when we look at it. When we compare ourselves to other funds, that's part of it. It's the salaries of the team, the cost of the consultant, the cost of the managers, even the trading costs of buying and selling stocks, let's say when we transition, factors into that. So the board is taking a very, we want to be cost conscious, and that's trickled down to the staff and everything that we do. That's a great question, but yeah, the ACFR has that information, and if you have trouble finding, we'd be happy to get that to you. It's on our website.
Other questions?
Yeah, this is about paying for time or buying time again. You laid out a bunch of scenarios where you can still buy your time, but there used to be a scenario where if you were just a vested member, you could buy years. Why was that taken away, and how does that benefit us?
Oh, you want to do it?
Yeah, sure, so this kind of ties into the legislation and those assumptions. So one of the things we did during the legislation was look at areas where we could be taking actuarial losses. And the idea with the actuaries, they try to project the cost when if you bought, let's say 20 years from retirement. You're right, you used to be able to do that. Well, we were taking losses on that because those projections weren't always on. And so in working with the city, the best way to make sure that we give a cost that's cost neutral to the system and still maintain that right is to do it at retirement. That was the thought process to try to protect the fund. But the city was adamant about keeping that, even with sick leave. That wasn't specifically changed, but that was the rationale, was that because there's an assumption that underpins it, to better position the fund to not take losses there. The actuary calculating it with all the data at retirement is the only way to make it exactly cost neutral to the system. So that was part of the legislative process.
Just real quick, they used to scale closer to the time when you buy the more it costs. And are we paying the maximum now if you were to buy it at the end?
No, not necessarily. I don't know all the actuarial science behind it, so we can follow up with our actuary on that. But it does vary individually. I mean, things like proportionate time can factor in. There's a lot that goes into it. For some people, maybe, but others, maybe not. And Russell, I don't know if you have any more insights you want to put into that.
Yeah, I can do that. What you're essentially doing is increasing your service credit, thus your annuity. So the difference in your annuity with and without the purchase is basically a present value calculation. If you can think of all the stream of payments that you're increasing for your lifetime, discounted to today, that's what it costs. So we're trying to make it cost neutral to the system. So you're basically funding that increase in your benefit, increasing your replacement ratio. And the good news is that we can run those numbers for you. If you saved in deferred comp, you can pour that money into a purchase and rely on your defined benefit to increase your post-retirement income. That's how it works.
And I was going to say that increase actually could offset the cost over time.
Yeah.
So,
I can give a
okay.
real life example.
Our actuarial board member, our best financial planner too, Mr. Benson.
So, to answer your question and your example, as you get closer to eligibility, the price gets higher and higher and higher. Thank you. But once you meet eligibility, that price drops probably almost to a third of what it costs for that last month to meet eligibility. Because you're no longer buying that paycheck early, you're just buying that incremental increase in your retirement. So when I was buying time, which I bought 5 years, those last few months were like $9,000 per month that I was buying. But once I crossed the threshold, I didn't retire at 18 years. I ended up going to 19 years. So I pushed 12 months past what I could have bought 5 years and gone out with 23. That $9,000 dropped to like $3,000 personally for myself. to buy those last 12 months, 3,000 per month instead of 9,000 per month. So I would assume it would drop off because you're
That's
only
what-
buying the incremental extra amount, the extra 3%, right, or the extra 1/4% to your annual income.
That'll be expressed on the, online, if you try to run it.
Yeah, I would say you can do that. If you need that, I mean, our team is always ready to sit down with you and walk you through that as well. That's what I would suggest.
Any other questions? If not, then I want to thank you all for those who contributed questions and those who asked questions today. We really appreciate them. As we close out our 2025 Member Summit, the board and I would like to share our sincere appreciation for each of you, the dedicated city workforce and retirees, current and retirees, who are and have been so essential to our community. What you do every day matters, and it makes a difference in the lives of our citizens. So thank you very much for all that you do. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, thank you for placing your trust in us. We remain committed to providing you the promised benefits and ensuring a secure retirement for all members. And then I would like to thank the COAERS Board for their engagement and commitment to COAERS. I would like to thank the staff of COAERS for their dedication to the system and to our membership. Please stay safe, stay engaged, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And thank you again for joining us for the 2025 Member Summit.